Hello everyone, this is Tom Fox and I would like to welcome you to episode 149 of the FCPA Compliance and Ethics Report. Today I have back with me Patrick Taylor, President and CEO of Oversight Systems. Oversight has a very interesting tool that can help you do transaction analysis and monetary monitoring of your various ERP systems. He talks to us about some of the interesting developments at Oversight and how you might use these in your compliance program going forward. The episode comes in at just under 22 minutes. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you very much. The president of Oversight Systems. Oversight Systems has a technological solution that helps many companies in many different ways, but for this podcast and for my interest, it's in the FCPA compliance space. Patrick recently had a blog post up on his site where he talked again about transaction monitoring, and it made me realize that I hadn't had the chance to visit with him in a while, and it turns out that Oversight had some interesting innovations that they've come up with, and it seemed like a good time to get you to come on and talk about transaction monitoring, Oversight Systems, your innovation, and generally give us your perspective on transaction monitoring and compliance monitoring in general. So with that rather long-winded opening, welcome, Patrick.
Thanks a lot, Tom. Always good to reconnect with you and your audience.
Patrick, in your blog post, you reminded your readers and hopefully mine, because I linked to it or I tweeted about it, was the Morgan Stanley declination back in 2012. And I think that's something you really cannot talk enough about, because it was the first public pronouncement we had from the Department of Justice about the usefulness and indeed perhaps even moving toward the necessity of transaction monitoring. And you had a very interesting insight in your blog post. And let me just read this, because I'd never seen this before. It said, of course, we all know the challenge faced by those companies interested in bettering their compliance program is how to do those actions effectively and cost efficiently. And this blog post about the Avon FCPA violation, Oversight's Chris Rossi speculates that the annual automated monitoring of Avon's card spend would be less than 1% of the $135 million in fines they paid out on the FCPA violation. And I would just add, they had reported $500 million in expenses, and then there's post-settlement costs on top of that. So you may need to consider moving that decimal place on that 1%, but that seemed to me to just be an incredible number given the cost of just the fine alone and what transaction monitoring can bring. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think Chris was being very conservative, frankly. So we can implement transaction monitoring and for the purpose of FCPA typically for tens of thousands of dollars a year. So something well under $100,000 a year. And that's been because of the breakthrough that you cited earlier. What we've done, we've launched something called Insights on Demand, and it is a software as a service version of transaction monitoring of our core platform. But in particular, what we've been able to do is we engineered out the implementation work. So we have become really built some best-in-class analytics, and then have developed ways where we can make it work and adapt to your business, but it doesn't take hours and hours of professional services time. We've automated that whole process. So it's sort of the best of both worlds. We can give people something very affordable, and yet it can also be set up to meet their specific needs. And so we have solutions, transaction monitoring solutions broadly for accounts payable, purchase cards, and travel and expense. And in each of those areas, we call them insights. So we have let's say a half dozen different insights that you could buy for each of those areas. One of those is Foreign Corrupt Practices Act monitoring.
Patrick, I had a chance to take a look at your website earlier, and I have to tell you, I was frankly stunned when I saw your pricing on your website. At this these prices, I mean, companies almost cannot not afford to use these tools really in any industry.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, we should more than pay for ourselves in savings, where we're going to find waste and certainly potentially some issues of internal fraud. And then when you start thinking about also now giving a company very effective transaction monitoring program for the purposes of anti-bribery and anti-corruption, then it's absolutely a home run. Most people can't afford to make the kind of investments that Morgan Stanley could. But now there's a way to do that again is very, very approachable. And one of the other things we spend a lot of time on them is making sure it's efficient for you, right? There's no one I talk to who does it, who isn't already fairly booked in their day, right? Most people have a pretty busy day job. And so we try to make sure that when you're doing this in Insights on Demand, it'll actually be easier. So let's just say right now that you are, you'll see people that'll do a sample-based audit of, let's say, travel and expense and one of the things they might look for during that sample audit is look for FCPA issues. If you're taking a sample of 10 or 20% of the expense reports, frankly, most of them you look at are going to be okay. So in a lot of ways, you're not being productive in your time, so to speak. With our analysis, we're going to go through and we're going to find these specific expense reports and these specific people who represent risk, who are the riskiest. That might be a number like 2-3% of the total number of expense reports. So now, as opposed to sampling 20% and again wasting, looking at a lot of things that are perfectly okay, now you only got to look at 2, 3, 4% of them, and the ones you're looking at are the ones that deserve a closer examination, right? The ones that at least appear to be risky to our analytics, and you can exercise your human judgment on that. There's a built-in case management system. Everything that you do is documented. So if you ever have to talk to the Department of Justice, you'll be able to point to a very robust, well-founded program.
Patrick, one of the things that was made clear in Q4 of 2014 and even into Q1 of 2015 was that the Department of Justice and Securities and Exchange Commission would take a look at, in a more granular way than some of us had thought, gifts, travel, and entertainment. And one of the things that Oversight has always taken a look at from the monitoring standpoint is T&E spend and T&E fraud and misuse. And so if I wanted to, and then let me just overlay on that, the problems that some companies, specifically GSK and Lilly, have had in China with their employees engaging in T&E and fraud misuse, not for the purposes of personal gain, such as embezzlement, but to create a pot of money to pay bribes. Could this system be used to look at a specific geographic region or even a delineated country?
Oh, certainly. There are two ways you can do that. Of course, the pricing for the service is based on essentially the amount of expense reports you have to look at, right? The data volume, if you will. So one thing would be certainly to just have us look at that set of data. Or another way to do that is and this is the most common use, is we look at data from around the globe, but then we can present to you, here's a grouping of the people in PAC Asia or China or whatever, looking at that particular subset is certainly very easily done. And again, what we're going to try to do for you, or what we'll do for you is not just show you everybody there, but let me show you the things that look risky. And that risk is really measured, against your policy and best practices. So it's really this whole process is really automating a lot of the work in driving compliance in these kind of business processes. Again, like T&E.
One of the things that I try to advocate is that to drive compliance into the DNA of your company by making it part of your business process. When you talk about pulling the numbers, pulling the expense reports, is that something that is really a seamless effort, or is a company going to have to hire an IT expert to come in and get that data and run it through your system?
It should be seamless. In particular, the one thing would be that you're using an online expense reporting system. So, for instance, if you use Concur, we are a Concur, they call them App Center partner. What that means is you can go to your Concur administration screen, enable us, and we can then connect into the Concur cloud and automatically pull down all of your travel and expense transactions. So it's not only is there no IT involvement, it's literally a mouse click or so away. Now, if you use an on-premise T&E system, we know how to get the data from that. We know what data we need, and so we can make it a very low-touch process. But typically for those, there'll be some amount of involvement from someone in IT to let us, to pull the data. But again, we know, at least the good thing is we know exactly what we need and which tables they're in, and so it's relatively straightforward.
Patrick, you were I don't want to say an early proponent of technology because you've always been a proponent of technology, but my observation was you were one of the first to start to talk about to the compliance professional how technology can be used in transaction monitoring. And as a lawyer in that space, I didn't understand that sort of discussion in 2007, 2008, 2009. And I think probably many, like myself, who came from the general counsel's office, really didn't understand the power of technology as well. Are you and your team seeing compliance practitioners, particularly lawyers or people with legal backgrounds such as myself, really understanding the power of transaction monitoring and what a technological solution can bring to their program?
The way I phrase it is there's certainly interest. People realize that, again, learn from the Morgan Stanley declination that this would certainly be a good thing from the Department of Justice standpoint. As I mentioned earlier, everyone's busy, so you're trying to figure out ways you can do it in a more automated fashion. And the thing we found that really gets people over the hump, if you will, is letting them see their data, letting us analyze their data, showing them the analysis, showing them how the whole case management system works. And so we routinely do a diagnostic for someone. So we'll go back and, let's say, look at a quarter's worth of data, show them what it looks like, and then they can decide there if this is the kind of thing that they actually want to use on an ongoing basis. And if so, then we enter into a contract with them. But we'll actually do that for you for free. And that's what makes it meaningful for people is when they see their company's data, see how this is going to work, see how easy it is or how hard it is not, and get a feel for how they can make this program work in their organization. Because what you were saying earlier is spot on. You want to embed this, in your company's culture, and that's one of the things of doing this ongoing monitoring is you kind of get the sentinel effect. Once people know that you're paying attention, that's going to drive behavior, right? It's the old management mantra: you get what you measure. So if you're measuring compliance, if you're measuring those type things, it's going to influence the behavior of your employees. So it's going to make you a better, more compliant company. And of course, if something ever does come up, you're also going to be able to point to that as you are absolutely doing best practices. And as we know, the Department of Justice certainly looks more favorably on people who are putting a real effort in trying to be compliant, even if they didn't achieve perfection.
Patrick, as part of some of the material you have on your website, you have a sort of a PDF description of the FCPA component that we've talked about. Mm-hmm. You have a very interesting Venn diagram where you have three different categories. You have high-risk employee, you have high-risk country, and you have high-risk merchant. And you show the intersection of those three circles to perhaps create the highest risk. And one of the things that I think companies are not able to do is kind of connect those dots of, yes, well, I know we have employees who are in the sales function, that's high risk. Yes, I can look to the TI, CPI, and know a high-risk country. And we've got certain government officials, but nobody is able the one person is able to put those together in the kind of analysis I see just represented visually. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's one of those questions. It's really a good something a computer is very good at, right? Because there are a lot of details to keep up with, and you're really looking for clues and pulling together a lot of clues to really find where that high risk intersection is, right? It's not every employee, it's not every vendor, even in high risk countries, right? And that's what our analytics do particularly well, is evaluate all of the data from a number of different perspectives, find the evidence that is indicative of risk, and assimilate those different pieces of evidence and look for patterns of activity through time, right? Because it's rare that you find the one expense report or something that is the smoking gun that shows everything. It's typically, things evolve and happen over time, right? So if we go to the example you cited earlier, I'm sure they built up that slush fund over a period of time through their expense report, right? So you want to look for that risky pattern of activity over time and highlight those. And that's in particular one of the things that people have like about what we bring to bear. It isn't just, hey, there's a problem with this expense report. We actually can also say, here are the 20 employees that represent the most risk to you. For each one of them, here's the dossier of activities that they've had. And now you can have you have a deeper understanding of what's going on. And B, when you go to talk to them or talk to their managers, it's a much more substantive conversation, right? It's not, let's go, any sales guy can probably come up with a reason why a given thing happened on a given expense report. But when you sit down with a dossier of 17 things, that's a different discussion. It's a more meaningful discussion. It's a discussion that'll have a greater impact on their behavior. Or, again, if you see that pattern of activity, that those 17, 19, however many things it is, you may in fact find an HR action is appropriate at that point in time. And, that is certainly some of the things we've uncovered as well. And there are a lot of great statistics that say, when I find somebody that's cheating on expense reports, I'm actually probably have the odds are that 75% of the time they're engaged in some fraud somewhere else as well inside the organization. So it can be a very effective way for, to find the bad apples and get them out before they spoil the whole bunch.
At some point you're actually going to have to go on the speaking circuit or blogging circuit and just talk about the last 5 minutes you described, because you have, in a manner more concise than I've ever heard, talk about the raw amount of data, the analysis that goes into that, and then the winnowing that down to deliver to a compliance practitioner such as myself. Here's the truly high-risk categories that you now, Mr. Lawyer, or you, Mr. Compliance Practitioner, need to take a deeper dive into it to really synthesize for me the power of transaction monitoring to look at a large amount of data, winnow it down to a manageable amount, or at least what we could agree upon as a high-risk amount that we could then take a deeper dive into.
And that's a good, thank you for that. And then you bring up a really good point, which is one of the things people get concerned about. Oh my goodness, I'm going to have to look at everything you find. And with more basic systems, that could in fact be true. But that's one of the things we work real hard on. Yeah, we're going to look at everything, but how can I recast this information so I can let you focus your time on the most meaningful and reasonable handful of things. So you can, again, hey, I'm trying to address the highest risk items. I mean, again, there's not even the Department of Justice expects you to be perfect. They know that, but what they want to see is you are trying to go proactively after the areas of high risk, and we can absolutely help you do that and frankly, make it easier than the way you're trying to do it today. So, our goal is to both help you be better, but to also make it easier. Yeah, if we feel like we've really achieved that with Insights on Demand.
And I'd have to add as the third goal is a much more cost-efficient manner.
The engineering out all of the implementation work and being able to have that in a software as a service is a viewpoint. And basically, people buy it by the drink, and we actually will let you terminate for convenience, right? So our view is we should earn your business every time we deliver for you. You shouldn't be stuck with us for a long term if we're not delivering value. So we put our money where our mouth is, and that's exactly what's in our contract. So A, you can try it get a look at what we can find for free, and B, you can get started with us. And again, if we're not providing you value, then our view is we don't deserve to get your money. So I will tell you that we have an extraordinarily loyal customer base. They do stick around. But we like to have that pressure on us to in fact perform for customers. So it's this Insights on Demand has been a big breakthrough for us and for the market. And like I said, give us a shot. You have nothing to lose and potential to gain a lot.
Well, that brings me to the following, which unfortunately we're at the end of our time. But if somebody wanted to give you a shot or a shout out or a shout, how would they do that?
Well, certainly the easiest place to do is go to our website, which is oversightsystems.com. Or certainly I'm happy to speak with anyone directly if they're interested, and I'm available at patrick.taylor@oversightsystems.com. So either way, we'd love to have the discussion, and hopefully if there's a way we can help, we'll do that, and we'll make sure that you become a satisfied customer too.
Well, Patrick, thanks very much for taking time to visit with me today. It's been very enlightening to me, and I hope many of my listeners will find the same, and they will go to your website and give you guys a shout, because now that I've heard you go through this explanation, you really have got really a market breakthrough on this. So kudos to you and your team.
Hey, thanks a lot, Tom. Always a pleasure.
All right. Goodbye.
Thanks.